Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another video. Today's video is going to be the Offlane tier list for patch 7.30C, and as usual in the other two videos I said this is probably going to be the TI patch, and so we'll probably see the meta develop over TI, and so I may even make new tier lists after TI to, adjust this meta, because right now this is kind of what it is, but it could develop when we see new strategies, new pocket picks, all these kinds of things. So let's just jump into it. First, S tier, pretty obvious. Beastmaster, Lycan. Pretty straightforward. These heroes have been really overpowered ever since the first 7.30 patch, and they have nerfed these heroes and the Helm of the Overlord a little bit, but it's not enough to make these heroes, not as good. They're still really good. I will say this though, even at my tier, 4.5 to 5k, Divine bracket, these heroes are not being picked a ton. These are like high-level Dota heroes, and that's because they play in a way where they kind of snowball the game, they push towers early, they get their Helm of the Overlord, and then they group up and they take the whole map away from the enemy team. And if you're not in a bracket where everyone, coordinates like that, it's not going to be as good. And so even in my bracket, it's not as good. So I will say these are S tier heroes, but it's something that you should just kind of understand that this is for the higher level Dota, because probably in your tier, these aren't going to be picked as much and they're not as good. So just keep that in mind. But for most tier lists, obviously, we're focusing on the higher level and we're kind of trickling it down from there, and then you can adjust. So that is S tier. Not much else to say about that. Pretty simple. Now, the next A tier and B tier even, I'm going to mention sort of at the same time, because this is just like the mid tier list where I feel like I could switch these two around in some ways. And that's that A tier, these heroes are not picked nearly as much. Now, some heroes like Sand King, even Legion, are being picked a decent amount. But usually these heroes have a pretty high win rate, around like 55% or something like that, even if they're not picked a ton. Where a lot of these heroes, except for, these two, which I'll comment on later, these heroes are having pretty good time with a lot of picks, but, just average win rate. And so that's kind of why I separate these out. These heroes are just kind of better with win rate, even if they're not picked as much at times. And these heroes, they're not as good. Like Mars is being spammed a ton. He's getting picked all the time, but his win rate's like 49%. So he's getting picked a lot because he's pretty good, but he's just not like OP. So anyway, we'll talk about the A tier quick. Night Stalker, pretty good. I think just good overall. It's just that, he's always a decent hero. It's just whether or not you can get through that first 5 minutes of laning stage without getting completely crushed. And I think he, with small buffs here and there or whatever, he just feels pretty decent now in the lane, and he can, overcome that hurdle and scale really good into the late game. He's just like a beast in team fights later in the game. Legion, similar kind of thing to Night Stalker, where it's like, except the opposite, like the Legions are really good laners. Just feels like, well, okay, once you're done laning later into the game now, or do you have impact? Where Night Stalker, it's like in the lane, can you survive the lane for the first 5 minutes, and then later in the game you're definitely going to have impact. But Legion is a similar story to Night Stalker in that just small buffs over time. Now it's kind of the tipping point where now it's really good in even pro Dota, where it's sometimes, it's decent all the time in normal Dota, lower levels, because of the pick-off potential, the scaling damage, all that kind of stuff, playing carry from the offlane. But now, because of the save, because of the dominating in the laning stage, and now because of the shard with the BKB, you're basically giving your ally a free BKB for like a second or two. That's just really overpowered. That's really good. And so Legion just has this, pretty much everything. Even a BKB piercing stun that lasts forever. I mean, that's not to be underestimated. So Legion, just a really good offlaner right now. Sand King, probably your best traditional offlaner on the list here. Even though it's been nerfed a little bit, I will say that it's probably A tier. It has a good win rate and pick rate because it's really good against these heroes specifically. So if you're not seeing these heroes as much, it's not going to be as good. But still, I think even for lower tier Dota, it's one of those traditional offlaners with a stun, with good damage, decent laning. Like, you can never go wrong with picking this hero if you want to play offlane. So Sand King's up there. These next four heroes, pretty unique and interesting. We have Viper. Viper's a decent hero all around. Maybe not as good mid as it once was, but it's being played 5 position and off lane. It can just dominate the lane, just like it can from mid position in the mid lane against a lot of heroes. But I mean, this hero just feels, I've played it a couple times off lane, just feels so good to be ranged, to be like just spitting on the enemy carry. There's nothing they can do. Even if you have a support kind of trying to wrap around you, you have that magic resistance built in. You can get away pretty easily. If you have a support with you, you can just crush the lane. It's really good for all that kind of stuff. If you need to push the lane out, you can do that with your W. It's just an overall decent hero to win off lane. It doesn't offer a lot of initiation and stun. It's more tanky. It can do damage. So sometimes it doesn't work with every lineup, so keep that in mind. You can go Rod of Atos on this hero to like give it a stun, but just keep in mind it's not always the best. Sometimes it can feel underwhelming if your lineup isn't like surrounded with, you don't have a lot of stuns on the team, you don't have any frontlining or initiation, those kinds of things. So just keep that in mind. And Necro is kind of a similar hero. It's not as much of a lane dominator. It's always a decent win rate, especially in lower level pubs, but it's just a matter of whether this hero tips, is another one with it hits that tipping point where it's good in pros, and it's kind of getting to that point because this hero's been bad, at least in pro level Dota, for years, ever since they nerfed it to give it magic damage on his passive instead of pure damage. But it's finally coming back for various little reasons. But in your bracket, this hero is always decent just because the ult is so good, and it can be a really annoying hero to lane against because you're trying to get those last hits, and then this hero's just auto regenerating, with all the last hits that it's trying to get. So that's Necro, pretty decent laner, pretty decent in the game, can build like aura items as well too, so that's always good for your team. Bounty, the main thing with this hero is the Ags build. You'll probably go Phase Boots, you'll probably go Vanguard or something like that, and then you'll just get your Ags and you'll start spamming out the shurikens, you'll steal everyone's gold, you'll kill supports in like 3 hits, it's crazy, and this is why this hero is really good. And it's sort of like Necro and even Viper in the way that if you don't have the right lineup, if you don't do really well early and get your items up and like scale and you're not able to run in, you're not able to spam your spells, it can feel bad. It can feel useless. It can feel like a support sometimes. But if you're able to get snowballing, if you're able to have the right game with the right lineup, it can feel really, really good. So that's Bounty. Enigma, just a classic hero that you can never count Black Hole out. And sometimes, some patches it's not good because it's not good to be greedy with an Enigma, but it seems like for whatever reason, this patch, it's decent to be greedy with the Enigma. I will say Silencer is a popular hero, but because it's so popular, actually, it's going to get banned or picked on your team half the time. So because of that, that means Enigma's, that counter's taken out, and now Enigma can be played pretty well. And you can never, like I said, count out Black Hole later in the game. One or even a fresher Black Hole is just going to win the game for you automatically. And so Enigma's up there, even in pro level Dota. And next we're going to go to B tier. B tier we have Bat. Bat is a really, really good mid, still a great mid, but it's not as good offlane, but it's still really good. It still can be picked offlane, still can dominate offlane. It's not as good offlane. And then we have Mars. Like I said before, very high pick rate, not the best win rate, but probably still a really good hero. Bloodseeker and Venge, kind of these weird niche offlane picks. They're getting picked a decent amount. Venge is on the downtrend, I believe, because of nerfs. So Venge could even go to C tier if I really wanted it to be there. But Bloodseeker as well, it's like kind of a carry, but it's playing more in the offlane and has a decent pick rate, but not the best win rates. That's why I put it here. Venomancer maybe on the downward trend, not really sure. Could be upward trend, maybe in TI, but I usually don't see this hero being a very big, like, professional, TI level hero, but still very annoying, still can be really good offlane, still can push the tower, just might be on the downward trend. Slardar, on the other hand, Slardar is on the upward trend, wasn't that great, but you can never count out the stun. If he has a good laning stage and he gets his items up, he can just be a beast, take Roche quick, all of those kinds of things. He's getting picked a decent amount in pros, has a decent win rate, so we're putting him on the upward trend here. Then we have Pango, another one on the downtrend a little bit because Pango was slightly nerfed. When Pango had the change to the slow going to his Boulder Smash or whatever it is. What is it? Shield Crash. Boulder Smash. When it goes to the Shield Crash, the slow just made the laning stage. Like you could spam that ability out a lot and it would just be really annoying in the lane. It was really good, and they kind of nerfed it a little bit, but it's still a very good hero. So that's Pango. Tide, one of these heroes. That's a traditional hero, but not the best. Decent pick rate, decent win rate, but not like anything special. And that's pretty much your B tiers. But I think any of these heroes, like any traditional one, like Tide, Slaughter, you can pick them. Mars, you can pick, pretty good. Bat, all those kinds of things. Pretty decent traditional carries. I would watch out for picking Venge or Bloodseeker or Veno. It's just got to be the right game. You got to know how to play them. And then the last two here, I just include them here because Elder Titan and Tusk have very good win rates when they're picked offlane, but very low pick rates. So it's not something where, they're not being spammed in matches a lot in pro level pubs. But if you go to Dota 2 Pro Tracker, they are there as meta picks. It's just they're not being picked a lot, but they have good win rates. I think Elder Titan's win rate is like 60%, and Tusk's is like 55, but they only have like 100 matches or so being played in the offlane position. So it's not like a super popular pick, but who knows if it could be, Elder Titan might jump up to A or S tier or something in TI for whatever reason. It might just be a beastly offlane hero. So just look out for that. Tusk, I don't think so much, but, you can never underestimate a Tusk right-click build, I will say. That could be a real thing. We'll just see if that actually becomes something in pros. So that's my B tier. Next, we'll move on to C tier. There's a couple here that are a little odd. Alchemist is kind of a weird one, but look for this to be something that is picked in TI. He has a decent pick rate, and, not picked a lot, but when Alch is picked, it's going to be offlane, and then his win rate's okay, so we'll just see if that becomes a real thing. You have to play around this hero, so it's more of like a pro pick, not as much like a pub pick. OD, not picked that much, but when it is picked offlane, it's pretty good. Again, it has to be like the niche OD pick, and you have to know how to play it. Darkseer, kind of on the downtrend. I generally don't like this hero. It was better in the last patches, but I didn't really give it its due because I don't like the hero. I don't think the hero is good in like lower level Dota. It can be decent against the right lineups and stuff like that, but it just gives the enemy carry a free lane. If the enemy carry knows what he's doing, he can just like deny all your creeps. It just doesn't feel great, and then without the right coordination, without the right follow-up, without the right team play, I don't think the hero is as good, and it's on the downward trend. So I could put it in B. I just don't like it in general. So even though this is like a pro list and Darkseer's okay, I'm just putting it down here because I think overall it's not going to be like, it's one of these heroes that's like only a pro pick. I think I just don't see it being super viable in most brackets, so that's why I put it down here. I'm a little bit biased against it, but I'm a carry player, and I'll just tell you this: whenever I see Darkseer on the enemy team, I love it. I love having Darkseer on the enemy team because I know I have a free lane. I'm going to dominate the lane. I'm going to have an amazing game, and then he's going to use his spells, and we're just going to run away from the wall. It's going to do absolutely nothing, and like he's just not going to do anything. Like unless they get like a follow-up for the Darkseer vacuum vault, like a Ravage or a Black Hole, then it can be scary. But otherwise, I'm just like, this hero is useless. But that's my personal opinion. I don't really like Darkseer that much. Next, we have Dawnbreaker. I was debating putting Dawnbreaker even lower than this. I mean, she's a really good laner, but offlane, it just feels so bad because she doesn't do anything really with items as much. She kind of does all the same stuff, but like from 5 position, to be honest. So she's actually being more of a 5 position pick, not an offlaner, because she just doesn't need those items. She just is so tanky and uses all of her spells and all those things. Like the items in the farm doesn't do much on her. Yeah, she can get like a halberd or something, but it's just not, she just doesn't need it. So C tier, and it can feel ineffective. Like if you're not snowballing the game, if you're not feeling unkillable, like you can feel really bad to have an offlane Dawnbreaker because it's like, she uses her ult once, and then like if that doesn't hit people or whatever happens, it's like, what is this hero doing? But it's not the best. Centaur, decent hero, but not the best. So I put it in the C tier. It's like a traditional offlaner, but just not very good. Same thing with Underlord, not being picked a lot, not very good. You can still pick these heroes, but they're just not the greatest right now. They don't have the best win rates and like not a very good pick rate. Magnus, kind of downward trend, I would say. It's just like not a great offlane hero. I would even debate putting it in D tier, but it's has an okay win rate. It's kind of okay. It's just not great. You can never count out, kind of like Black Hole, you can never count out RP, but it just can be very weak otherwise. It doesn't have a lot of impact from the offlane position. I'd almost rather see it as a mid or a support. And then D tier, I kind of debated putting Axe and Bristleback here, but they're just way on the downtrend. They've been nerfed a lot, so they're here now, and I mean, they could maybe be C tier. They're still okay, but you're just not seeing them picked like at all. You're seeing their win rates really, really bad, even in normal pubs. So it's just these two heroes have gotten kind of destroyed over the last few patches. So we put them in D tier. You can still pick them, I think, but they're just not as good, especially with something like Slark against being popular against Bristleback. It's just not great to have Bristleback in the game, especially with the new Silver Edge and how that is working and how people like that ability. It's just obviously these two heroes are bad against that item, so they're down here. Phoenix, just not a great offlaner, probably better support. Same thing with Earthshaker, just a better support. Nature's Prophet, for whatever reason, just not popular right now. We'll see what happens in TI. This is one of those heroes that could always come to fruition, could get big if it's like really good as carrying late game. Brewmaster, just a weird hero, but it's just in a weird spot, I think. It's just not very good for whatever reason. Like, you just pop your ult, and if your ult doesn't feel good, if you're not snowballing the game early, people will just end up killing your Brewlings in like 2 seconds these days, because they just, people scale with so much damage. Abaddon actually isn't a bad offlaner, like not the worst, but the win rate of this hero in pro level pubs as offlane is just absolutely garbage. But in lower level pubs, this hero can be actually a pretty good offlaner. So even though I put it in D tier, don't write this hero off completely in your pubs. It's just in, as an offlaner, it's more of a support in pro level pubs. As an offlaner in pro level pubs is not good. And then last, we have the F tier. We have Broodmother, completely nerfed into the ground. Still like a niche mid pick maybe or something like that for stomping, pubs for smurfing or whatever, but still F tier. Pudge, F tier, absolutely garbage. Do not pick this hero off lane. It's pretty much a 4 position only now because it can hook creeps. Doom, for whatever reason, is just trash tier. I don't know why necessarily this hero is so bad. I don't really see any reason for it, but its win rate is like 40% or maybe like 45 or something. Just, I don't even think it's 45, maybe like 42 or 43. And then in pro level pubs, it's really bad too. I don't know why this hero is so bad, but it just seems so bad right now. All the metrics are saying it's bad, so I'm just gonna, say it's bad. Timbersaw, nerfed into the ground. He didn't really get the biggest of nerfs, but for whatever reason, just fell off a cliff and just has terrible pick rate and win rate in all pubs and pro level pubs and everything. His hero just feels really bad when it was like kind of dominating 3 or 4 months ago. And then Dragon Knight, similar story to the mid-tier list. Dragon Knight was a lot of a big offlaner a few patches ago, and now they nerfed it into Oblivion, and they kind of tried to buff it to give it some strength back, but it's still really bad. So just do not pick this hero offlane anymore. So that is my offlane tier list. As always, let me know if you disagree, agree, what you think I missed out on, what you think may develop over the next TI, meta development, what might happen in the next tier list I do after TI, what you think might switch around. Do you think Bloodseeker is actually super OP or something? Do you think this S tier, these heroes aren't as good as, what a lot of people are saying? Whatever it is, let me know. You think Alchemist might be this crazy sleeper pick? Who knows? Yeah, just let me know. And as always, if you like the video, like, comment, subscribe, all of those kinds of things. If you want me to take a look at your replay, I'm taking requests from Discord. I'll just say in this video at the end, I'm doing that mainly because YouTube deletes all of the replay IDs when you post them here. So if there's another way we can get in contact, I'd be happy to do that. It's just Discord's a lot easier. If you want coaching, I'm doing coaching now, like I said in all of my videos previously. If you want to get coaching, go to Patreon below. The link is in the description. I'd be happy to do that. It's really fun for me. I really enjoy that. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.